My name is Katie Niemeyer, and I have chosen for my project on the Korean conflict that led to the Korean War. The war was between North and South Korea. At the end of World War II, Korea, which had been a Japanese territory for almost 40 years, was divided into two halves at the 38th parallel of latitude, which is a straight line, almost exactly across the middle of Korea from east to west. Russian soldiers occupied the northern half, and the Americans and Allied soldiers controlled the southern half. The dividing of Korea into two halves was not a great decision. The people in South Korea wanted the whole country to be a free republic, and the communists wanted to control the whole country. The communists built up a powerful army in North Korea. June of 1950, they sent their tanks and soldiers across the 38th parallel into South Korea, hoping to conquer that country very quickly and enforce the South Koreans to join their communist government. But they did not count on the U.S. and the President Harry S. Truman of the United States. President Truman called the invasion of South Korea a case of unprovoked aggression, meaning an attempt by one country to rob another of its territory and freedom. He ordered the United States flyers, sailors, and soldiers who were in North Korea to help the South Koreans defend their country. The United Nations immediately supported President Truman's actions, and many of the free countries of the world, including Great Britain, Turkey, Canada, New Zealand, France, the Netherlands, and others, sent soldiers to Korea too. It was the first time in modern history that the free nations of the world had gotten together to stop a country from being fought. The fighting in Korea was called a police action rather than a war. General Douglas MacArthur was named commander of the United Nations Army. At first, things went badly for the United Nations and South Korea, but more soldiers arrived and pushed the North Koreans far back into their own country. By the end of the year 1950, the United Nations had clearly won. Then the Chinese Communist government decided to help North Korea. They sent huge Chinese armies into North Korea and easily pushed the smaller United Nations army back to the 38th parallel again. The war continued for another 2 years, with both sides facing each other, more or less each other in the middle of the Korean peninsula. It was a terrible war for American soldiers and other United Nations soldiers in Korea, and also for the people of South Korea. It took many years before their ruined cities could be rebuilt, and before their destroyed fields once again grew enough food to support the Korean people. At the end of the 3 years, in July 1953, an armistice was signed and the fighting stopped. An armistice is a truce that allows time for both countries to come up with an agreement to begin a peace treaty. The South Koreans did not join the meeting, therefore, they did not sign an armistice. There was no celebrations anywhere. It was a peace without a clear victory. These patterns continued in Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. All these wars are very costly and clear-cut, defined objectives, which more than very dangerous. It has been 60 years since the armistice was signed for the 37-month-long war. Unfortunately, Korea is still called a forgotten war, but it shouldn't be. The people who fought in the war say they accomplished their objectives, but at a heavy cost. History doesn't always give us a blueprint or a lesson plan for today's problems, but it does provide some insight. Nearly 1.8 million Americans served in Korea from 1950 to 1953, and 36,574 died there. President Dwight D. Eisenhower said, when the agreement was announced, All nations may come to see the wisdom of composing differences in this fashion before, rather than after, there is resort to brutal and futile battles. Thank you.